Hey guys, it is the end of the year, the end of 2021, which, wow, this year was so long. I thought I took a break for like a month, and it's been like 3.5. So, hi, welcome back. I'm sorry that I took such a long hiatus. I got a new job and things got crazy, and I still have been reading. And so a lot of these are going to be little updates about things that I've read, because this is my top 10 list. It was really hard to narrow it down to 10, and I do have some honorable mentions that I'll talk about later in the review, but we're just gonna get into my top 10 because these are like books that I read this year that were absolutely amazing, phenomenal, and I think you guys should read. So these are my recommendations, my wrap up of the whole year. I didn't read that many books, like, sorry, I haven't read that many bad books. So I don't know if I have enough to make like a worst of. Let me know down in the comments if you would even want to hear kind of like a worst of most disappointing books from me. Because I like to stay positive, but you know, sometimes we need to vent a little bit, so let me know. So we're gonna clip things along because I know that I can get very long-winded about things. But so number 10 is The Whisper Man by Alex North. Now this was one of my Book of the Month selections. Book of the Month, if you're watching, sponsor me. But I actually really love this book. I went into this, it's a thriller, like kind of mystery. There's like this serial killer, the Whisper Man, and he's in prison, and this like journalist guy moves to a new town with his son, and then his son starts hearing the Whisper Man. So there's like a tinge of supernatural like element to this that I actually really enjoyed, because it reminded me a lot of like really good crime thrillers that I have read and watched, but there was just like this little subtle supernatural element that was just weaved in very, very well. Not like super overt. This is not like a ghost story. This is not like a monster kind of thing, but it was just subtle enough to make everything just way creepier. This book kind of freaked me out. I remember I was reading this book at like 3 a.m. one time, and then I had to put the book down because it was freaking me out a little bit. So don't read while you're home alone and late at night. Number 9 is by far one of my favorite series that I've ever stumbled across. I've been hearing about it for years, and that is Heartstopper by Alice Oseman. Now this is, it was a webtoon that it's turned into it's going to be 5 like volume graphic novel series. There are 4 volumes out. The 5th one comes out in May? I don't know. In 2022. But this is just, if you are looking for a queer romance, this is amazing. If you're looking for a found family, this is amazing. If you're looking for just like wholesome, like a safe space to be comforted, I've cried so many times reading this series, not because it's sad, but like just I just felt so seen. Like this is the series that I wish that I had when I was in high school. And yeah, I absolutely love it. If you're not reading it, please go out and read it. Run to the store to read Heartstopper. It's amazing. And it's getting a Netflix adaptation, so read before it comes out. Yeah, so this year was a lot of me getting to series that I have heard about for so long, and have finally stumbled into the hype train. And so my number 8 is The 5th Season by N.K. Jemisin, and holy crap, did this book blow me away. I did read the whole trilogy. I don't think the later entries were as strong as this one, but like overall it is a trilogy that I would very highly recommend, especially if you're into like modern adult sci-fi fantasy. And I don't really even know how to classify this. It's like kind of sci-fi, it's kind of fantasy. It's beautiful is what it is. And this book specifically blew my socks off in a crazy way, which I will not spoil, but it was so well done. So well done. And I don't really want to even talk about it because I feel like one of my favorite things about it is that I went in like almost knowing nothing. And so I was just like discovering things, and it was awesome. It was awesome. Please go read this. So here for number 7, I have the finale to the Grishaverse, The Rule of Wolves. Quick shout out to King of Scars, which I also read and was phenomenal as well. This gets a little shout out, but Rule of Wolves was everything that I wanted the series to be. I actually really enjoyed the Grisha trilogy when I read it for the first time, which was pretty recent actually. And then Six of Crows I had loved from when I was in high school, and then rereading them was fantastic. But the King of Scars duology just took everything that those series did and like leveled it up so much. And this book was just so well written. So many things were paid off, and it felt like this epic, massive conclusion, but the stakes were so personal, and I really loved it. I loved it so much. So if you haven't had a chance to finish out the Grishaverse, please read Rule of Wolves. It was fantastic. At number 6, I have The Space Between Worlds, which was recommended to me by Joel, and it fully lived up to all the hype that he was telling me about it. This follows a character who can jump between like different universes, different like multiverses, and so she ends up kind of like bumping into herself and different. I don't want to say too much. Again, this is a book that I do not really want to spoil, but just this book was just phenomenally written, especially the themes, like the themes of classism and racism and the divisions that were like made to cage these people and keep them in their place, like through economic structure. There's so much that I could talk about this book, but it was just very, very well done. I do believe, from what I can remember, there are some trigger warnings for this book, so be sure to look those up before diving in, but this is one that I highly recommend, and just, it blew me away. So for number 5, we have another queer found family warm hug, and that is The House in the Cerulean Sea. This was one of the first books that I read this year, and I read this with Vintage Books and Wine, which is my book club, and oh my gosh, this book just charmed me in all the right ways. It reminded me of like, kind of like a Lemony Snicket, Tim Burton vibe, but like queer. Like it felt very much like a fairy tale in all the best ways, and just the things that it had to say were beautiful, and I have so many quotes from this book just like underlined and just ingrained in my memory, and this is a book that I know that I'll be going back to again and again in the future. I'm actually currently reading his newest book, which is Under the Whispering Door, so that'll probably pop up in my 2022 reads. I am going to be having more frequent wrap-ups, so you guys aren't like, what the hell is Blake reading? But yeah, this book was just, it was what I needed. It was what I needed to read. And so in that moment, it was just fantastic. Number 4 on my top 10 list of the year is a book that I haven't actually read the sequel to. I haven't finished the duology. I plan to do it very soon in January, maybe February sometime. But Ray Bearer by Jordan Fueco, oh my god. I don't read a lot of YA anymore. I tend to like go towards the more adult novels, but like this book just, oh my god, it does not feel like YA, but it is like in a very, like, I'm not like talking down on YA, because like there is very good written stuff in YA, but like sometimes when I'm reading YA, there's like a feel when you're like, okay, this is like more for a teenage audience. Jordan Fueco has written a book that I think kind of just transcends audience. Like, kids could read this, like high schoolers could read this, adults can read this. Like, this is a book that I will push onto anybody alive because it was just phenomenal. It was just like, it's like this fantasy world. There's a lot of some of my favorite tropes, but they're spoilers, so I can't really talk about them. But like, if you are looking for like a fantasy book that is different, this does not have a lot of the same beats as like your usual fantasy novel, and it subverted a lot of my expectations. And I know I'm rambling a little bit, but like, God, this book was awesome. All right, we're in the top 3. So the number 3 spot goes to Dial A for Aunties by Jessie Q. Sutanto. This book was so funny. I cannot tell you how many times I had to like just stop and like belly laugh because this book is it's amazing. So the main premise of this is basically the main character, she gets set up on a blind date. Her 4 aunties set her up on this blind date, and then things go a little wrong, and the guy ends up dying. And so then Medi and her 4 aunts are trying to hide the body, but then it accidentally gets transported to the wedding that they're catering, which is on this like island. So they're stuck. They have a dead body that they have to like deal with. It's very like kind of Weekend at Bernie's almost. It's so insane and ridiculous. And also it's a rom-com. There's this book with so many things that I did not expect. It wasn't as dark as I thought it was going to be either. It balances tone very, very well and has some of my favorite comedic moments just like ever. And I'm very excited for another entry in this series to be coming out soon. This is a standalone book, but we'll get to see the characters go on other shenanigans, which I am very here for because the characters were what made this funny and I adored them so much. So please read this book. Number 2 is the perfect Halloween read and just, oh my God, it was everything. If you have seen the movie The Witch and you loved it and you were like, I wish it was a little more devilish, Slewfoot by Brom is the book for you. This book was just everything. I devoured this. It's set in the 1600s and it just has this vibe of like these settlers just really don't know the land that they're in, because there's just a lot of old things residing in the land. And Abatha, our main character, she's a very like fiery woman in a time where literally just a couple of wrong words could get you like thrown in the stocks by the men. And she has to deal with the rampant sexism by literally everybody. If you want a book where you're going to be like, I hate men, this is the book that will make you hate men if you don't already. When I say men, I mean just like the patriarchy in general, not like all specific men. But if you get triggered by me saying men suck, then like maybe look inward. But anyways, so Slewfoot, it's very witchy. I don't really want to spoil it just because there were so many interesting twists and turns and surprises, but the ending to this novel was so freaking satisfying. I just like had a grin on my face the whole time I was reading it. If you just like anything that I described sounds like your vibe, this book will like scratch that itch. It will fulfill your need. And yeah, I just can't stop thinking about this book. Like every time I see it on my shelf, I stop and like, I'm like, damn. Also, Brom is an illustrator and there are like illustrations throughout this whole book. So highly recommend that you pick this up. It's just such a great production and wow. All right, before we get to my number 1, I have a list of honorable mentions that I like, because I have this like tally of books throughout the year that I add to like my best of the year list. And so these books didn't make my top 10, but like they were good enough that I was like, I need to mention these books. So I'm going to run through these really fast. So first we have Survive the Night by Riley Sager. This is a very taut thriller. It's told over the course of one night and I read it in one sitting, which I don't usually do with books. This was just awesome. And I'm a really big fan of Riley Sager. I feel like some novels are hits, some are misses, but this novel in particular was just it was a hit. I loved it. Next we have The Guest List by Lucy Foley, and I actually listened to this as an audiobook with my mom on a road trip, and and it is a full cast. Like every POV has a different voice, and like there's Irish people, and it's just awesome. There's like a murder mystery on this island during a wedding, and I loved it. Maybe my love for it is increased by the audiobook, and so if you have a chance to listen to the audiobook, please listen to this audiobook. Fantastic. Next, we have Goblin, which is by Josh Malerman, the guy who did Bird Box. And this book was just, it was the most Stephen King book that wasn't written by Stephen King. It's about this town, Goblin, this like weird town where bad things kind of happen and weird things happen. And this actually is 6 novellas set within the town, and they all kind of tie together loosely, but each novella on their own was like a very interesting read. And this was just such a cool place. Like Josh Malerman did a fantastic job setting up this like spooky setting, and I want more from the town of Goblin, because this was just really interesting. Next, we have The Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires by Grady Hendricks. This was a book that I loved. The horror elements were done right. The satire and comedy was done right. The bond between the main characters, it follows the women of this book club who then find themselves dealing with a vampire. Awesome. It was super cool. He said that he wrote it, basically his pitch was, my mom fights Dracula, and that's the vibe, and it was great. So I would pick this one up. Next is another book that I read for my book club, Vintage Books and Wine, and that is A Wish in the Dark by Christina Soontornvat. This was just awesome. I read this again. I read this in one sitting as well. Well, not like basically one sitting. I took some water breaks, but it was just so beautiful. And this is a middle grade novel following these kids who are born into a prison and desire a life outside of that. And this is kind of a very loose retelling of Les Mis. And so one of the main characters is an escaped convict, and then one of the other POV characters is kind of like obsessed with catching him to like fulfill her honor. And it was so well done. It was beautiful, and it deals with a lot of heavy topics, but in a way that is very like kid friendly. So like your kid will want prison reform after reading this book. And it's in a way that it's not too dark. And it was beautiful, and it made me cry. So I loved it. 2 more. I'm sorry. Stick with me. Next is also another perfect Halloween read, and that is The Halloween Moon by Joseph Fink. And Joseph Fink is one of the co-creators of Welcome to Night Vale, which is one of my favorite series of all time. I love that podcast so much, and all the books that have been written in that universe. This follows this girl, Esther, who loves Halloween. She is obsessed with Halloween. Oh my gosh, a book just fell. Anyways, Esther loves Halloween, and she's looking forward to it every year. And this year her parents are like, you're getting too old for Halloween. And once Halloween night rolls around, some weird things start to happen, and it seems like the town is trapped within Halloween night. And this was just a very fun read. Again, this is, I also read this in one sitting. I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm like, I'd never read books like, and then 3 of the books have been like one sitting books. But this one, it was just so enjoyable. It gave like really good like adventure vibes. Like this is a book I can see myself like just doing a quick reread of every Halloween, because it felt like Nightmare Before Christmas or something, like just like a nice little holiday treat. And it was written in a way that was like creepy but like kid friendly and funny, and there's just some like he's a great writer. He has some of the like amazing turns of phrases, and the prose was really good. So yeah, I would highly recommend this one, especially around spooky season. And now the last book that I have as a honorable mention is The Terror by Dan Simmons. This is a very fat novel and took me forever to read, but it was worth it. I also watched the show. The show is not as good as the book, so please read the book. I know it's more of an investment. It is a historical novel. It's actually based on the real-life events of these people who manned the HMS Terror and the HMS Rebus, and they got stranded in the Arctic Circle. and they had to try to find a way back. Except in this version, there's also something on the ice that is stalking them and killing them. It was very creepy, very intense. Honestly, a lot of the creepy stuff was more from the fact that they're stranded and starving and going to die. The monster was just a nice bonus. And it was such a good read. I really loved this book. So yeah, those are my honorable mentions. Of course, I'm an idiot. I have 2 more honorable mentions that tie in with my my top, actually, because I read the entire Greenbone saga this year. Jade City, Jade War, and Jade Legacy by Fonda Lee. These books are perfect. They are perfect. So Jade City and Jade War. Amazing novels. Just so good. So good. And I'll talk more about the premise in just a sec. I just need to gush for a sec. But Jade Legacy, the finale, which I just finished like a couple days ago. It is a masterpiece. It is one of the best books I have ever read flat out, period. This is one of my all-time favorite series. It's the best trilogy I've ever read. It is the most satisfying thing. It is... Anyway, so let me talk about Jade City. So Jade City is set in the city of Kekon. This is a adult fantasy series. It is set kind of like, think like alternate world, like Singapore or something like that. It's set in this city, and I believe the time period in the first book is kind of like our like 40s, maybe like 30s, 40s. It's a gangster novel, basically. It follows these 2 clans who basically control the city of Kekon. We follow the No Peak clan and their struggle with the Mountain clan as they try to be on top, try to be the best clan. They're at war and shit goes down. The characters in the Call family are some of the best written characters in fiction I have ever read. Jade City is intense and I loved it so much. And then Jade War came along and I was like, oh, how are they going to up the stakes? And holy crap, the stakes were upped. We got a bit more of a global view on things, and it elevated things, which is what you want a good sequel to do. And then the finale comes along, Jade Legacy. The things that this book did were genius, because this book actually spans like dozens of years, decades. And so you get to see the conflict that was started in the first book, and you get to see it stretch and reverberate throughout all these characters' lives and how it affects their descendants and how it affects the world. Like, you get to see this world develop, like literal cultures and like technology, and like it feels very natural because the characters are like involved in like a lot of things. Like almost everything that happens in this world, you get to see firsthand through the eyes of characters. So by the time like we're reflecting on things that have happened, it's like, oh my god, all that happened because of our character. Like it never felt like the plot was driving the story. This story was fully driven by all these amazing written characters, and after I finished Jade Legacy, I wanted to open the first book up and start a reread. And that has rarely happened to me before, and like I literally just wanted to spend another 1,000 pages with the Call family. There's nothing I can say about this book and this series, this trilogy, other than please go read it. Like I stayed away from the first 2 because I wanted to wait until the last book was out. I'm very glad I did that because I would not have been able to wait between books. And so now all 3 books are out and you can binge to your heart's content. Please read this series. Oh my god. Just 10 out of 10. One of the best series I've ever read. One of my favorite series of all time. Yeah, go read. If you made it to the end of this video, thank you so much. Thank you for sticking with me. That was my top 10 and my honorable mentions as well, which probably there were too many of those, but like, you know, this is my channel. I can do what I want. So yeah, please let me know. Please share down below what your top 10 or just best of the year list was. I read so many books this year, so many good books, and I'm very excited for 2022. I have decided that I'm not going to be buying as many books in 2022. We'll see how much I hold to that, but I just have so many good books, or I think they're good, on my shelf, and I have so many series that I need to finish and continue, so I think I'm going to try to focus more on things that I already have, which I have a lot of things. So you guys will be getting a lot of content, and I promise to be more dedicated in the new year. I'm sorry that my hiatus was way longer than I thought. I did film like a couple videos here and there that I might eventually at some point put on the channel, but from now on I'm going to be trying to post a video every 2 weeks or so. If we're lucky, maybe a video a week, but I'm just saying 2 weeks because that's probably more realistic with me. But thank you guys so much for coming back to my channel. Your guys' support over the whole last year has meant so much to me. And yeah, I look forward to having you guys get to know me and my content and my books way more. So have a happy holidays, and I'll see you guys in 2022. Bye.